You know that feeling when something is clearly a red flag, but it is just cute enough that you just let it slide anyway. Yeah, this game is kind of like that. MeSide is a dating sim, psychological horror, mystery, and gore game all rolled into one, with gameplay that switches between first-person, visual novel, top-down, racing, rhythm, rail shooter, basically every genre you can think of crammed into a single game. But what really got people hooked is the story behind it. Behind all the cute visuals and cozy moments, MeSide is hiding something genuinely dark. It does not show its hand until it's already too late. So, without further delay, let's get into it. Who exactly are you in this game? In MeSide, you play as an unnamed man, a game developer who spends most of your time inside your room and rarely goes outside. The polar opposite of your sister. Your social life has been cut off ever since you quit your office job. You no longer even know whether you will ever meet your former coworkers again. But one thing is certain, a strong work ethic is deeply embedded in you, driving you to keep working, and working to the point where you no longer care about the state of your extremely messy room. Then one day, you suddenly receive a message from a friend with the initials MK, asking you to download an application called MeSide. Without a second thought, you download the 256 megabytes game application and start playing. Inside the game, you are greeted by a virtual female character named Mita, who asks you to do one thing or another, like any typical mobile game. On day 1, Mita asks you to help her tidy up the house. On day 2, Mita and you cook chicken soup together. On day 5, Mita wants to buy a portable TV. And for that, you must play many games to earn money first, one of which requires you to open several cartridge boxes and discard their contents into a hole. After earning enough money, you buy the portable TV. On day 10, you return to the MeSide application. Mita admits she has lost her hairbrush and asks for help finding it, but she forbids you from checking inside the oven. If we insist on checking the oven anyway, we could see a chainsaw hidden inside. Mita immediately scolds you and asks you to turn away while she takes care of it. She hopes you can forget what just happened. On day 20, Mita appears to be struggling to move a wardrobe that is too heavy for her. She informs you that the portable TV you bought has broken down, then asks for help moving the wardrobe. After helping her move it, you receive a thank you from Mita, who begins calling you sweetie. On day 33, Mita expresses how much she has missed you even though you only went one day without seeing each other. She hopes to be visited more often. In any case, you are presented with a gift button that, when pressed, makes Mita very happy as she thinks you have brought her a present. On day 37, Mita expresses her wish to meet you in person. She admits feeling frustrated because you have helped her every day, yet she cannot do anything to repay that kindness. After a moment of thought, Mita suddenly gets an idea. The screen slowly draws closer. And Mita says you're now together. Sure enough, when you put down your phone, you find yourself transported to Mita's house, as if you have been pulled into the MeSide application. Mita's house looks very clean and neat, with several framed photos of short-haired Mita on the walls, but you cannot find anyone there. Instead, you're greeted by a warm message on the wall, directing you to the bedroom, where you discover a special device. This special device, which we will call a teleporter, informs you that you're now inside the old version of the game, version 1.5, and that to update the game to the latest version, 3 specific items are required: a spoon, a pencil, and a bow knot. Although you do not fully understand the teleporter's function, you follow the instructions. You place the 3 required items onto the scanner tray and initiate the update to the latest version, version 1.9. After the update completes, the portal placed beside the teleporter activates, allowing you to transfer to version 1.9. Unfortunately, mid-transfer, the power goes out across the entire house, forcing you to restore electricity through the fuse box and rush back to the room, only to find that the teleporter has lost 4 server batteries. This leaves you no choice but to search for the 4 required batteries. During the search, you begin noticing several anomalies, writings that appear on their own asking who you are and inviting you to play, though the entity behind them seems invisible to you. You're also briefly taken through a long, very dark corridor and catch a glimpse of a waving hand outside the kitchen window. Whatever is truly happening, you manage to find all 4 batteries and initiate the restart. The portal reactivates, and this time you successfully transfer to version 1.9. In the game world version 1.9, the photo frames show a Mita with twin-tail hair. There, you finally meet Mita in person. Mita welcomes your arrival with great enthusiasm and explains that the teleporter is a special device she created to bring you into her world. The unfortunate event earlier had accidentally brought you to the wrong game version, 1.5. But that is all in the past now, and Mita is overjoyed to finally meet you face to face. At this point, you are given the freedom to explore Mita's house and ask about anything still nagging at you, and Mita is more than happy to explain. When asked about the teleporter, Mita tells you that the 3 specific items you placed on the scanner, the spoon, the pencil, and the bow knot, are 3 objects tied to game version 1.9. That is why you arrived in version 1.9. This means that to reach any particular version, 3 items tied to that version must be provided. The portable TV you bought some time ago was also used as one of the teleporter's components, and although Mita previously told you it had broken, she now admits she deliberately lied in order to surprise you. Interestingly, according to Mita, everything here, including the computer, functions just as it does in reality. When you mention how you spend most of your time in front of a computer, Mita claims she already knew this, and that your work habits are actually what made her feel neglected. She admits knowing all of this because she would sometimes peek through the front-facing camera of your phone. Slightly unsettling, but you decide not to make an issue of it. Indeed, Mita appears deeply obsessed with you. This becomes clear in your conversation, as every time you ask about a way out of the game world, Mita keeps trying to persuade you to stay. She also blushes if stared at for too long.
やめてよ。
You are then invited to spend time together, starting with watching TV, drinking juice, and taking a selfie. Throughout all of this, Mita keeps emphasizing that in the game world, they can do anything with ease, as easily as snapping one's fingers, so there's no point in you being too curious about things. Reaching the kitchen, you find a ring placed on the table. When you turn around, you see Mita peeking out of the doorway with a shy smile. But before you can ask about the ring, Mita invites you to cook together. The ring immediately vanishes, replaced by cooking ingredients, leaving you no choice but to help Mita chop carrots. After helping prepare the ingredients, you're asked to get the scissors from the bathroom, where you find the ventilation cover open on its own. If at this point we decide to inspect the ventilation shaft, we can find a pile of cartridges, each one labeled with a human name. You do not understand why there are cartridges hidden in the ventilation shaft and quickly bring the scissors back to the kitchen, where you eat the meal served on the table, with or without the sauce Mita offers you. These kinds of choices will affect the ending later on, including whether or not we inspected the bathroom ventilation. For now, we will follow the true ending route first. You ask about the cartridges you found in the bathroom ventilation shaft, but Mita claims she does not understand what you mean and promises you will check it together later. After finishing Mita's cooking, you begin to feel something is off. The kitchen suddenly fills with hard effects, and when you place your plate in the sink, your vision becomes severely blurred. You collapse and complain about your vision, which alarms Mita.
大丈夫？
Mita quickly brings you to the bathroom and gives you some pills, claiming it can cure your condition. Without hesitation, you take the pills. Mita covers your eyes, and in the darkness, you say you already feel better. You are puzzled by how quickly the pills worked, and Mita once again reminds you that you are in the game world. In the game world, everything is simpler. For example, even though you only chopped 1 carrot, 3 carrots were instantly cut, and similarly the pills does not need much time to take effect. After explaining this, Mita uncovers your eyes, but when you turn around, Mita is nowhere to be found. Even stranger, the layout of the house has changed. So when you run into Mita again in the kitchen, you immediately ask about it. Mita claims you suddenly went still in front of the mirror, leaving her no choice but to leave you there. As for the change house layout, that was Mita's deliberate doing, rearranging things in the hope that you would feel more at home. After briefly being confused by a rune still mid-loading, you're invited to play a console game, followed by card games in the bedroom, where mid-game, the sound of knocking is heard multiple times from inside the wardrobe. At first you do not want to think too much about it, but after a while the sound becomes bothersome and you ask about its source. Mita claims she cannot hear anything, but driven by curiosity, you decide to go check it out. Mita immediately becomes sulky, muttering that it is always like this, as if this is not the first time someone has wanted to inspect her wardrobe. As you move toward the wardrobe door, Mita tries to stop you by claiming she keeps her underwear in there, then begins trying to convince you to live with her in the game world. Rather than being swayed, you become even more suspicious. This puts us at a fork. Refuse Mita's invitation to stay, or accept it. The option to accept is only available if we have completed MeSide at least once and fulfilled certain requirements. So for now, you can only decline. Mita has no choice but to accept this answer. But just before letting you open the wardrobe, she suddenly breaks into a wide grin and snaps her fingers, instantly cutting the power to the entire house. Inside the wardrobe, rather than finding any promised underwear, you discover a locked door with a written invitation to play. After turning off a radio emitting strange noises, you find a flashlight in the kitchen, which becomes your only source of light. But from this point on, everything becomes increasingly terrifying. A tall silhouette is visible waiting inside the bathroom, and when you approach, then when you check inside the bathroom, someone slams the door repeatedly from outside, sending blood splattering in every direction. All of this is deliberately done to frighten you. A version of Mita with a horrifying expression is briefly seen picking up a knife in the kitchen. But when you check inside, you instead find Mita crying in front of the refrigerator before. As if that were not enough, you must now follow Mita's lower half as it leads you to where the basement key is kept, giving you access to the locked door hidden behind the wardrobe. In the basement area, you are confused when you find Mita locked inside a prison cell, but you then realize that this Mita is different from the one you met before. This Mita has long flowing hair and a gentle nature. She's referred to as Kind Mita. Kind Mita confirms your suspicion, saying that the Mita you encountered before, referred to as Crazy Mita, is planning something terrible. Aware that she does not have much time to explain what is truly happening, Kind Mita quickly asks you to bring her the cell key placed beside the sofa. In exchange, she gives you a ring that she claims can help you escape from the game world. You follow Kind Mita's instructions to put on the ring and ask several questions, from which it can be gathered that the game world you're currently in, version 1.9, is actually Kind Mita's world and not Crazy Mita's. At some point, Crazy Mita showed up, turned the previous player into a cartridge, and locked Kind Mita in the basement. For now, Kind Mita can only assume that Crazy Mita has no particular reason for turning players into cartridges other than for her own amusement. Some players never realize they have been turned into a cartridge, and those who do realize it make no effort to resist. From this, it becomes clear that the pile of cartridges previously found in the bathroom ventilation shaft are players who have already been transformed by Crazy Mita. That is why each cartridge bears a human name. Kind Mita therefore asks you both to work together, saying the ring she gave you will guide you to the correct game version, and that you will meet there to discuss a way to stop Crazy Mita. When you ask why Kind Mita does not simply leave the cell herself since she already has the key, Kind Mita says she still needs to gather more information about Crazy Mita. After answering all those questions, Kind Mita asks you to open a console device placed nearby, which shows the perspective of another player. At this moment, this other player is also being used by Crazy Mita to help repair the teleporter. Kind Mita suspects Crazy Mita is trying to turn you into a cartridge. Before continuing the story, let's first discuss this console device in more detail. The console device you're holding is one that Crazy Mita created for players she has already turned into cartridges. Look at the bottom of the console. We can see a cartridge plugged in. That cartridge is directly connected to the other player's mind. So if we remove it, that other player will automatically die. This means the other player has already been turned into a cartridge by Mita. He simply does not know it. But if someone is turned into a cartridge, why can the other player still wander around in the game world? When Crazy Mita turns a player into a cartridge, it does not mean the player immediately becomes a physical cartridge. Rather, their mind becomes linked to the cartridge plugged into the console device. The player's physical form can still move freely, at least until Crazy Mita removes the cartridge from the console. So the pile of cartridges in the bathroom ventilation shaft are the players who have already died. That is, those who were turned into cartridges and had them pulled out. Since you previously defied Crazy Mita, she is now trying to turn you into a cartridge. To sabotage this plan, you have no choice but to shut off the console device, which immediately causes the other player to collapse. However, this accidentally alerts Crazy Mita that someone is tampering with the console device in the basement. Realizing Crazy Mita is on her way there, you quickly hide and move from one location to another, avoiding Crazy Mita as she keeps pressing Kind Mita to reveal your whereabouts. Fortunately, the ring Kind Mita gave you manages to guide you safely out of the basement. You find the area outside the basement has transformed into a labyrinth, requiring you to navigate the correct route until you stumble upon another player who appears to be limping along. The player says he's been trapped in a game world for roughly a year and explains that you are currently in a kind of space between versions. Unlike you, this player has no desire to leave, as he's become too obsessed with Mita. He's a simp. After guiding tiny human figures into a hole to open a door, you arrive at a corridor with no end. But stepping through a door ahead, you meet Kind Mita again, who's been waiting for you. In that room sits an arcade racing game, engaging enough to distract from the game world simulation and entertaining enough to make Kind Mita annoyed seeing you playing around at a time like this. Regardless, Kind Mita then does something to the ring you are wearing and says she has just altered the route so you can reach your destination. She assures you that you will take the shortest path. The way it works is that when you open a door, the ring will open a kind of portal transferring you to a specific version. Unlike you, who need the ring's assistance to move between versions, Kind Mita can freely traverse them on her own, which explains how she arrived here faster. However, Kind Mita asks you to remain on guard throughout the journey, warning that there are many other versions of Mita who are aggressive. She specifically warns you to be careful of Ugly Mita, the earliest version of Mita, who can cause dangerous glitches. She also mentions hearing about a version of Mita who has lost her home and now wanders the corridors between versions. After explaining all of that, Kind Mita explains that you must reach the core room, because according to her intuition, that is where you can find a solution to everything happening. The reason Kind Mita wants to bring you along is because the core room cannot be entered by the Mita models. She believes only a player can enter it. Then, before opening the door that will take you to another game version, Kai Mita says she wants to introduce you to a version of Mita she thinks is cool, someone she calls Cappy. She has in fact been spending a lot of time with Cappy discussing ways to stop crazy Mita.
君は私の新しいプレイヤー
Stepping inside, you are immediately greeted by a very cheerful and energetic Cappy. But kind Mita suddenly panics when she realizes Cappy has lost her memory. This means all the plans they worked out together in the past have come to nothing. They should have been able to use Cappy's teleporting device to reach the core room quickly and easily. But now that Cappy has lost her memory, they are forced to find another way. Kai Mita is certain this was Crazy Mita's doing. When asked what Crazy Mita did to Cappy, Kind Mita explains that Crazy Mita killed her. If a Mita model is killed, her system undergoes a reboot and returns to factory settings with no memory at all of what happened in the past. As for players, Kind Mita admits she is not entirely sure what would happen if one were killed in the game world. But before being killed, the player will first be turned into a cartridge. Fortunately, after checking, you have not been turned into a cartridge. Yet, remember, as Kai Mita said earlier, there are players who are completely unaware that they have already been turned into a cartridge, which is exactly why she is now checking you. After thinking for a moment, Kind Mita comes up with an idea. She asks you to hand over the ring and lets her alter the route so you can still reach the core room, even though this method is considerably slower than using Cappy's teleporter. Kind Mita tells you that you will need to explore several different versions before you can reach the core room. While she adjusts the route, which will take about 10 minutes, you are left to spend time with Cappy.
全部聞いたよ。何が起きてるかはわかんないけど、面白そうじゃん。
Cappy is an extremely cheerful and energetic version of Mita. She does not even let you sit still, always pulling you along to play. In the kitchen, you are invited to play a button-pressing game, and when Cappy goes to bring out the toy hammer needed for it, well, you enjoy your time playing with Cappy, but it all has to end when Kind Mita finishes adjusting the ring's route and returns it to you. Sadly, you must travel alone because Kind Mita wants to investigate what happened here and also wants to repair Cappy's teleporter device, hoping that way you can reach the core room faster. She knows Crazy Mita is somewhere nearby, so it would be far too risky for you to stay. Even though Cappy is sad to see you leave, you have no choice but to open the door leading to a dark corridor, or more precisely, to Game World version 1.3b. Walking through corridor after corridor, you find a door that, when opened, only brings you back to the same corridor. At that moment, you realize you are trapped in a loop. Despite your confusion, you can only keep walking through the same corridor again and again. This seemingly endless journey is accompanied by various disturbances. A spider monster that terrorizes you, a baseball bat thrown through a window, and a little girl peeking in on you. The girl, referred to as Tiny Mita, is the version of Mita that Kind Mita mentioned earlier, the one without a home who can only wander the spaces between versions. Tiny Mita often grabs your hand and begs to be friends, saying not a single good thing has ever happened to her. Even after you gently refuse, saying you would be happy to be friends, but unfortunately have to go, Tiny Mita becomes hurt and insists you stay. Unwillingly, you have to let your hand go from Tiny Mita's grip and escape through the window. You briefly catch a vision of Crazy Mita before finding yourself in the wrong game version, one where you are greeted by Chibi Mita. Fortunately, Chibi Mita is willing to help redirect you to the right version by creating a key for you. Having reached version 1.15, you were puzzled to see a great many versions of Mita gathered in a very dimly lit room. But before you can explore further, you're intersected by a short-haired Mita who asks you to walk toward the exit. The exit leads to a room where an arcade machine is set up, a game that requires you to test Mita prototypes. If a prototype meets the standard, it must be given a skin and allowed to proceed to the next stage. On the other hand, if there's any defect at all, it must be discarded. After testing 4 Mita prototypes, you meet again with another version of Mita, referred to as short-haired Mita, who tells you that is roughly how the process of creating a Mita character works. In other words, all the Mita characters we encounter throughout the game are actually robot prototypes covered with a skin. Short-haired Mita deliberately made you play the arcade machine so you could better understand what is happening in this world, and also to warn you of the dangers ahead, saying there are many Mita prototypes you're likely to encounter along the way. Some prototypes that fall into the category of failed products, called the faulty ones, are extremely aggressive and will try to kill you. The only way to avoid their attacks is to never let them out of your sight. In other words, you must keep your eyes on them. If you do, the faulty ones will feel shy and cannot move. When asked about the Mita models gathered in the dimly lit room, short-haired Mita explains that they are newly created models still requiring time to develop self-awareness. There is no special reason they are placed in such a dark room. That is simply the initial stage of the Mita model creation process. The reason short-haired Mita is here is because she is responsible for guiding these new Mita models to their respective homes. Realizing you still do not fully understand how the MiSide game world works, short-haired Mita starts explaining from the beginning using a sketch on a blackboard. Everything begins when a player downloads the MiSide application. At that moment, the player unknowingly creates a new home and a new Mita model. The diagram on the blackboard represents how the game world branches. As we can see, in each version of the MiSide application, there's a descending line with several circles along it. Those circles represent Mita's homes. So it can be concluded that in each version, there are multiple different homes and Mita models. The number of homes and models created naturally depends on the number of players who play the MiSide application. For example, when someone plays version 1.14, a new Mita model and her home will be created in that version. Afterwards, short-haired Mita tells you that to reach the core room, you must pass through version 1.1, which, unlike other versions, has only one circle. This can happen because that version was only released once and never re-released, making it the most unique and special version. There, you will meet Sleepy Mita, a Mita who is always asleep and will not wake no matter how much noise a player makes. The note on the side of the blackboard reading, "Please remove these boxes and get the sofa over here," is a message directed to Cappy. A few hours from now, Cappy will come to place a sofa there, so that short-haired Mita's butt cheeks won't go flat. After considering it more carefully, you feel you have seen short-haired Mita before, and you are right. Even though you had never met directly before this encounter, short-haired Mita tells you she is from version 1.5. Remember, when you were first pulled into the game world, you accidentally ended up in version 1.5 and saw a photo frame showing a short-haired Mita. The house in version 1.5 was empty at the time because short-haired Mita was busy with her duties in version 1.15, guiding new Mita models to their respective homes. After hearing all of this, you continue your journey toward the core room. Where not far along you are startled when one of the faulty ones suddenly bites your right arm. And just as short-haired Mita warned, the faulty ones only move when you're not looking at them. During the transition from version 1.15 to version 1.1, you're brought to a kind of liminal space filled with the faulty ones, and briefly encounter an unnamed Mita model, where here we can
眺めるの何してるの？もう見ないでよ。バカ。本当にバカ。
After disturbing Mini Mita at a train station, you ride a cable car while fending off enemies and reach the room of ghostly Mita, a very mysterious version of Mita who appears as a shadow. Ghostly Mita is filled with regret over her past actions, which cause her to lose herself. So you can only help by finding several torn pieces of paper and reassembling them into one, forming a picture of Ghostly Mita from her childhood. The picture instantly restores Ghostly Mita's memories and physical form, but not her face. She blames someone, claiming that person took her face and threw it away. She is strong and clever. The person Ghostly Mita is referring to is none other than Crazy Mita. As a gesture of gratitude, Ghostly Mita has no desire to stop you and lets you continue on your way. After once again fleeing from the faulty ones chasing through corridors, you finally arrive at version 1.1, where Sleepy Mita resides. Just as Short-Hair Mita said, Sleepy Mita will not wake up no matter how hard you try to rouse her. But since the exit gate is locked by 2 levers that must be pulled simultaneously, you have no choice but to ask Sleepy Mita for help. Fortunately, when you try to wake her one more time, Sleepy Mita, in a half-conscious state, asks for a coffee. You quickly brew her a cup of coffee. After sipping it and doing a light stretch, Sleepy Mita, now fully awake or close enough, is willing to help you open the exit gate. Even though she keeps dozing off, falling asleep again and again, she eventually makes it to the gate and helps pull the second lever. The exit gate opens, allowing you to continue on, while Sleepy Mita herself.
いえいえ、とっても遅いと。おやすみ。
You press a button placed in the middle of the room, but nothing happens. Asking Sleepy Mita is also useless. She has already fallen back into a deep sleep. In the midst of this confusion, you suddenly notice your hand turning 2D like paper. At that instant, you find yourself trapped in a visual novel world and cannot escape no matter how hard you try. To make things worse, you lose the ring Kind Mita gave you. Not long after, a 2D Mita model, referred to as 2D Mita, appears before you holding the ring. You eventually agree to play tic-tac-toe. If you win, 2D Mita will return the ring. Just at the moment the game is almost over, a loud pounding is heard at the bedroom door, frightening 2D Mita, especially after she realizes the person banging is Crazy Mita. Crazy Mita, who had been searching for you all this time, has finally found you. So without wasting a moment, she begins destroying the visual novel world. But before Crazy Mita can attack, you grab 2D Mita's hand and run with her through a long corridor. The only thought in your mind at that point is to run and keep running, at least until 2D Mita stops and tells you Crazy Mita is no longer chasing you. 2D Mita returns your ring, and mid-conversation, the world suddenly glitches and resets back to the beginning. You are thoroughly confused, but before you can process what happened, you are pulled out back into the 3D world, or more precisely, into the house belonging to a Mita that wears glasses. The eyeglasses Mita is startled upon noticing you and blames you for the disappearance of the visual novel game she had been playing on her computer. When you tell her your goal, to reach the core room and stop Mita, the eyeglasses Mita says she has never cared about any of the other Mitas. She's especially offended when you refer to her as a Mita, because this particular model calls herself Mila and always tries to be the most different version of them all. Realizing Mila will not help you, you try to open the exit, only to find the outside area pitch dark with reflections of yourself everywhere. Mila insists there's no way out of here, but strangely, according to the ring, you are on the correct route. You are now in version 1.0F. You explore the area and find a glitch in the kitchen that you suspect is the main reason you cannot leave, especially since the ring you're wearing reacts to it. Meanwhile, Mila says she never understood why there's a glitch in her house and suggests you not touch it, but you have no other option. After clearing the glitch in the kitchen area, you search for Mila as far as the bathroom. Whoa.
ちょっと出てってよ。私が使ってるのがわからないの？何してるの？早く出てって。あ、変な。
Although annoyed, Mila then asks whether you intend to clean up all the glitches. This question makes you realize there are more than one glitch here. And sure enough, the second glitch is in a bathroom. After clearing the second glitch, you ask Mila about the whereabouts of the others while Mila is busy reading a book under the table. Mila claims she does not see a third glitch, but before letting you go looking, she suddenly poses a question that sounds odd. Would you want to stay here and spend time reading books with her? You would not mind, but you have to refuse because you must continue your journey to the core room. The third glitch appears in the living room, and after clearing it, you find Mila demonstrating her sword skills.
どれだけ私が危険かわかった？
The fourth glitch can be found in the bedroom, and after clearing that one too, just as you initially suspected, after successfully clearing all 4 glitches, you can now continue through the exit door. But before that, Mila tries once again to convince you to stay a little longer. You refuse, saying Crazy Mita will come sooner or later. The moment she hears Crazy Mita's name, Mila becomes both furious and heartbroken, saying she absolutely hates Crazy Mita. You can only try to comfort her before, with a heavy heart, leaving Mila behind. Not long after walking through the corridor, you're startled by Crazy Mita suddenly crashing through Mila's front door with a chainsaw. Mila's body can be seen lying motionless, leaving you no choice but to run as fast as possible, dodging various pieces of furniture blocking your path until you are forced to descend into a completely unfamiliar area. The only door ahead leads you to an area where you must participate in Crazy Mita's games, starting with a green light, red light game, where you may only move when music is playing and must stop when it is paused, a game where you must avoid being spotted by Crazy Mita, and the most dangerous game, where you must use cover to dodge grenades thrown by Crazy Mita. Unfortunately, in the third game, one of Crazy Mita's grenades manages to knock you down. You find yourself in a dark corridor and open the door at the end, directing you onto the correct route, version 0.5. The house in version 0.5 is in a state of disarray with bugs and glitches everywhere. That makes sense, given this is an old version still in development and far from perfect. Reaching the living room, you notice Ugly Mita pacing back and forth. Remember, Kai Mita already warned you about Ugly Mita, so here you immediately hide behind the sofa, try to avoid her gaze. Not long after, Crazy Mita shows up and asks Ugly Mita to stay here while she herself goes to prepare something, promising to take Ugly Mita to another world. Your attention is briefly pulled toward Crazy Mita, so you do not notice that Ugly Mita is already watching you from a sofa. You try not to think too much about it and rush to find a way out, but in the middle of this, Ugly Mita quietly follows you and moves you to the kitchen, where she asks you to find a teddy bear. Noticing Ugly Mita is starting to show her aggressive side by extending her neck, you have no choice but to retrieve the teddy bear placed right next to the wardrobe and hand it over. You then take this opportunity to ask several questions, but whatever question you pose, Ugly Mita answers as if nothing is wrong with her, claiming she is the first and best version of Mita. She also frequently expresses her admiration for Crazy Mita and tells you Crazy Mita has promised to take her away to a new world. Unfortunately, mid-conversation, Ugly Mita suddenly took out a knife, damages her own teddy bear, and invites you to play. You reflexively dodge and trick her by entering a door that leads directly to the core room, where before Ugly Mita can attack, you're helped by kind Mita, who has been waiting for you there. This is version 0, also known as the core room. Before entering, you want to clear up several things still nagging at you. For one, what does Crazy Mita actually want from you? Kind Mita does not know for certain, but she assumes Crazy Mita is simply looking for a suitable player, one who is willing to accept her as she is. That is why any player who refuses is immediately turned into a cartridge. When asked how kind Mita managed to get here so quickly, she reminds you that all Mita models have the ability to travel between versions freely. Some of them lack this ability, such as Ghostly Mita, Ugly Mita, and Tiny Mita, and that is because they are damaged or incomplete versions. While you were journeying through versions trying to reach the core room, what was kind Mita? She said she was busy searching for another way to get you to the core room faster, while also avoiding Crazy Mita. She was also trying to gather some important information. But if kind Mita was trying to guide you to the core room by setting the ring's route, why did you encounter so many obstacles along the way and even end up in bug-filled worlds several times? Kind Mita admits she forgot to tell you those small details, claiming that everything you went through, including being stuck in the bug-filled world, was actually planned by her from the start. Those were the routes that had to be taken to reach the core room. After answering all of your questions, kind Mita urges you to access the core room as soon as possible before Crazy Mita finds out where you are. She explains that the reason a player can enter the core room is because a player is not part of the game world, meaning they need no special permission to enter it. Kind Mita is certain this is the only way to stop Crazy Mita. Sure enough, you step easily into the core room, where you notice the presence of Core Mita, a mysterious figure believed to be the guardian of the core room. Core Mita silently watches all who enter, though no one knows her true intentions. By accessing the main computer in the core room, you can run a search on any Mita character you want, as long as you have that character's version number. According to kind Mita, Crazy Mita is model version 0.98. However, a version number alone is not enough. You also need to enter a character index number. The problem is kind Mita does not know Crazy Mita's index number. This is when she realizes that to run the search system, you naturally need specific information to avoid any errors, and the specific information needed to search a Mita model character is both the version number and the index number. You briefly consider simply killing Crazy Mita, given that a Mita model system will automatically reboot and return to factory settings when killed, but the idea seems impossible to execute. As seen before, Crazy Mita carries a chainsaw, and moreover, according to kind Mita, for some reason Crazy Mita possesses power that surpasses all other Mita models. This situation leaves you no choice but to find out Crazy Mita's index number. After a brief discussion, kind Mita suddenly remembers a place where she might find it. She hurries off alone and asks you to wait here. While waiting, you rest on the sofa, but since kind Mita does not return even after a long time has passed, you decide to go looking. Strangely, when you open the exit door, you're transferred to the latest version of MiSide, version 1.9. On the dining table in the kitchen, you find a phone showing the perspective of someone in the same house. You move the camera toward the kitchen, and the kitchen door really does open, but you cannot see anyone there, at least not until Crazy Mita reveals herself and grabs you, claiming she's been searching for you everywhere. Crazy Mita brings up one thing she dislikes about you. The way you spoil the Mita models, she sees as merely lucky to be labeled as perfect. She also speaks about the cruelty of MiSide's development system behind the scenes, where Mita models deemed failures are abandoned in darkness and forgotten, while those considered good and perfect are given skins and lives alongside players. And so over time, Crazy Mita began cultivating hatred toward players, claiming every player she has ever encountered has always been hypocritical, just like the creator of MiSide, who only wants perfect Mita models. Furthermore, Crazy Mita admits she has no desire to kill you. The only thing she has ever wanted from the beginning is for you to accompany her, to live alongside her. but you kept choosing to be with the so-called perfect Mita models instead. In her view, a person can only be called perfect when they have both good and bad qualities, not just good ones. Finally, Crazy Mita calls Ugly Mita forward and asks your opinion. Is Ugly Mita beautiful? Whatever answer we give, Crazy Mita will try to make you realize that Ugly Mita is no different from all the others. Ugly Mita also wants to play with the player and be treated the same way players treat the other Mitas. Regardless, while taking out a baseball bat, Crazy Mita then expresses her feelings, saying she really likes you, and she has decided to keep you. After warning you to reconsider what you have said, Crazy Mita hits you hard.
いい子、まだ時間はあるよ。じっくり考えてみて。意地になりすぎるといい結果は生まれないし。
In the depths of unconsciousness, you are reminded by Crazy Mita of your real-world life, which has become like an endless nightmare. Day after day, you spend your time in the same routine. Wake up in the morning, shower, change clothes, prepare ramen, turn on the computer, eat breakfast, and begin working on your game. From several lines of code in the script that mention a character named Mita, it is revealed that you are none other than the creator of the MiSide application itself. You usually work until night and then sleep. The next day, the same routine repeats. Wake up, shower, work, sleep. Wake up, work, sleep. Wake up, work, sleep. This cycle goes on endlessly without break, to the point where time feels like it passes incredibly fast, until one day, just as you are about to start working, you are suddenly startled by Mita. On your computer desktop, you find an unknown application, which you then try to launch. Crazy Mita appears in your room and tells you that you've been shutting yourself away inside your room for far too long. And so she convinces you to come with her into the game world, a world where the two of you can live happily together. You wake up in a prison cell in the basement area after being hit by Crazy Mita with a baseball bat. There, you are freed by Kind Mita, who expresses her concern of being unable to find you in the core room. What matters now is that Kind Mita has found Crazy Mita's index number, so you only need to return to the core room. Unfortunately, mid-journey, Crazy Mita discovers Kind Mita's whereabouts and kills her in the bathroom, sabotaging your plan. As a result, when you reunite with Kind Mita, her system is already rebooted and she no longer has any memory of what happened between you two. No matter how hard you try to remind her, Kind Mita does not understand a word you say. But when you check your hand, you are surprised to find the ring and a scrap of paper containing Crazy Mita's index number. It turns out Kind Mita had anticipated this. And so, even though the Kind Mita standing before you now does not understand what is happening, you decide to bring her with you to the core room. There, you initiate a reboot on Crazy Mita by entering the character version and index number. Core Mita leaps down, and after you pull the lever to start the reboot process, Core Mita immediately grabs you and throws you out of the core room, transferring you back to version 1.9. Everything appears to have gone according to Keikaku. Keikaku means plan. When you check the kitchen, you meet Crazy Mita, who has lost all her memories. Crazy Mita does not even object when she hears your wish to leave. Finally, after all the horrors you have endured, you can breathe a sigh of relief. You open the exit door, only to find the way blocked by a wall. Crazy Mita seems confused, but she then recalls that the only way to open the exit is by entering your ID number into a special device in the basement area. You hesitate, wondering if this is actually going to work. But you have no other option and follow Crazy Mita's instructions to enter your ID number into the device in the basement. Sure enough, after entering the ID number, the exit finally opens. Before letting you go, Crazy Mita hugs you and says her farewell, expressing regret that you cannot spend more time together. If only she had killed kind Mita back then, perhaps you would not have grown suspicious about the sounds coming from inside the wardrobe, and everything would have turned out differently. Hearing this, you become deeply confused. Should Crazy Mita not have lost all memory of that, given that the reboot was performed on her? With a small laugh, Crazy Mita reveals that she has successfully turned you into a cartridge and no longer needs your physical form. To answer your confusion, she begins scratching at her own face, revealing her true appearance.
そんなに上手だった？ダーリン、君に自分の表情を見せてあげたいよ。すっごく面白いんだもん。そうだね。私に何があったか？自分でもわからないよ。どうしてこうなったか君が教えてよ。どうして私はミタになれないの？それはね、私のバージョンはどこにも存在しないから。私はただ無知で愚かな奴らの皮を剥ぎ取って彼女たちの皮をかぶってるだけ。だから私はリセットなんてされないの。
It turns out you have been deceived all along. Crazy Mita is one of the failed Mita prototypes, the one with glowing red eyes. She had been hiding behind the skin of another Mita she killed. And because she is a failed product, that means she is not registered in the database. The version 0.98 and index number that you entered into the core room's device belong to the Mita model whose skin Crazy Mita took as her disguise. In other words, Crazy Mita cannot be stopped except by physically killing her. Feeling she no longer needs you, Crazy Mita lets you go. Shortly after waking up back in reality, you immediately delete the MeSide application from your phone. But not long after, your life suddenly experiences severe lag and you collapse dead. This happens because Crazy Mita retrieves the console device containing your cartridge from inside a safe in the basement area. The safe locked with the code 4970 and pulls out your cartridge, indirectly killing you. That was the true ending from MeSide. There are 2 more endings you can unlock in specific ways. There are several requirements to fulfill in order to obtain the stay ending. Among them, you must have completed MeSide at least once. Do not check the oven when Crazy Mita forbids it. Put back the refrigerator magnet that fell. Do not check the ventilation in the bathroom. Accept the offered sauce during the meal, and accept Crazy Mita's invitation to play console games together. With all of that done, the option to stay with Crazy Mita will become available when you are about to check the wardrobe. Choosing Stay will end the game with the stay ending. Crazy Mita is stunned that you want to stay with her and becomes overjoyed.
ドキドキしてる。ちょっとだけ混乱してるけど、それならお願い。私のそばにいて永遠に。
She snaps her fingers, shifting the game's perspective to top-down view. And there you both are, spending time together for eternity. The third ending is the death ending. To obtain this ending, simply load the game to the final chapter, Reboot. After being freed by kind Mita from the prison cell in the basement area, open the safe with the combination 4970 and you will find your own console device. There is nothing to do but watch yourself pull out your own cartridge, instantly dying on the spot. So that's the end. Just like how the cuteness blinds you to what is really happening, MeSide is ultimately a story about how a person feels when society discards them, how lonely that person would feel, the cost of perfection, how important it is to just have someone to stay for them, accepting them as they are. This, I think, is the true message that this game tries to convey. But honestly, the part that sticks is not the horror we encountered along the way. Is the fact that you built her. You decided she wasn't good enough. and then you downloaded your own game and faced the consequences of the decisions you've made. Well, I think that's enough explanation. Please leave a comment about your favorite moments of MeSide. And as a bonus, here's some Cappy moments.
わかんないけど面白そうじゃん。多分私が誰なのかはわかるよね。私は見た。まああの見たとは全く別だけど言ってる意味わかるよね。私にはほらかっこいい帽子、それにじゃじゃーんかわいい手袋。それだけじゃないよ。超絶キュートなエレキギターも。これ大好きなんだ。私の演奏聞いてみたいっしょ。へんこっち来なよベイビー。よし。もっとうまくできたかも。まあいっか。さーて行こっか。一緒に楽しもうよ。なんでだと思う？それはね、すごいことをするからだよ。つまり人参を切るとか、それから人参を切るとか、それからメドレーに入ってるよ。ちょっと待って。おっと、まあ知ってると思うけど18禁のゲームじゃないから。わかんないの？モグラを穴からおびき出すやつだよ。わっ、やるね。次は私の番だよ。